I was kind of hoping that this sunflower would have behaved and just cooperated and produced ahead in time for the sunflower growing guide. That didn't happen because life is not always perfect, but we're going to be powering through and doing the growing guide because people have been requesting it so much on all the different platforms. For some reason, people have a notion that sunflowers are more of a American, Canadian, England kind of crop, and it's not so much a Trinidad, which is really weird because we have the perfect climate to grow sunflowers. So don't worry about that. You can grow sunflowers right here in Trinidad. Not difficult, not like in any kind of level of difficulty that you need to worry about. It's a very easy crop. And something interesting about this crop is that it has two types of flowers. There's the outer petals here. These are called ray flowers, right? They capture the ray, the sun rays. And then inside, you see this black part inside here. These are disc flowers. And those are the ones that get pollinated and produce the seed that we like to eat, that we make into oil, and that we use to grow more sunflower plants. So let's get straight into the growing guide. Hello everyone, thank you all so much for joining in. This is Dylan from the Trini Gardener channel, and I'm so happy you made it for this video because we're going to be talking about growing sunflowers. These are two seedlings from sunflowers that I started from seed. I haven't had a chance to put them in a container or in the ground just yet, so a good occasion would be to do it for this growing guide. Now, sunflowers, I'm not going to be keeping you very long. For sunflowers, they are a super easy plant to grow at home, just 100% organic. They don't need too much at all to grow, and you can have sunflowers. The good thing about sunflowers is that they grow so fast. You could like plant your sunflowers from seed today, and within 2 months you could have a sunflower that is already blooming from seedling. For example, the seedling into the ground or into a container, which I'll be doing today, just a bit more convenient for today. This sunflower is going to be blooming within a month. Within 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to have a sunflower entirely blooming here, and it's just such a beautiful, nice thing to have in your garden. Just raises the entire aesthetic of wherever you live if you have sunflowers. Now this is the branching sunflower, which I think is one of the easiest types of sunflower to grow, which is that you don't just get like right here, I have a premature head starting to form, so it's right there. And the branching sunflower, it'll produce branches with more heads. You would have seen this already if you remember from my garden tour video, one of my garden tour videos. I'll put a link up here if I can find it, and you'll be able to see what the sunflower looks like, the branching sunflower looks like. I don't know which color this is because I have had yellow and I've had orange branching sunflowers and I didn't label it properly. So I don't know which one I end up growing. I grew it from seed and I just can't remember which seed I end up using. So we're just going to see. We're going to see what kind of sunflower I end up with when this does bloom. Follow me, of course, on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to see what this ends up being. But let's get straight into the growing guide. Now, with sunflowers, you want to have a rich medium, a rich growing medium that's full of organic matter, but it's not a very picky plant. So, for instance, if you were to have some topsoil, and you could just amend it with just some worm castings, or you just have a bit of manure, some well cured manure, some cow manure, some chicken manure lying around, that would be more than enough for your sunflowers. They're not very, very picky with where they are. And the good thing about sunflowers, one of the reasons why people will grow something like sunflowers, is that these take up very little nutrients in comparison to the amount of plant that you end up getting. So let me explain that. If you imagine it, right, for a plant to grow, it has taken something from the soil. It didn't just grow on its own. It would have taken nutrients from the soil to produce this plant. Sunflowers, they take very little compared to how much plant they end up producing. So if you look at it in terms of numbers, let's say that in this container here, there is, let's choose a random number. Let's say there's number 10 amount of soil, whatever that is, right? Number 10 amount of soil. Something like a tomatoes would use probably 9 out of that 10, and then you basically are left with 1, right? If you're talking about like the number being the amount of like energy or nutrition that you have in the soil, because a tomato is a heavy feeder. After you have a tomato in a container or in the ground, the soil needs to be amended, because if there's 10 amounts of nutrition, the tomato has used up 9. Something like sunflower, if there is 10 amounts of soil in here, again, just follow along with me, right? Just go along with it. If there is 10 amounts of nutrition in the soil, the sunflower is probably going to use just around 3 or 4. So it's not a heavy feeder. It does need the nutrition, it needs to be present, but it can make do with whatever you end up giving the sunflower. So definitely everyone should be trying to grow this, because you don't need to worry too much about what type of soil you put your sunflowers in. Now when it comes to watering, you want to keep your sunflowers nice and moist. You of course don't want the soil to go completely dry, because sunflowers, they're very, very sensitive to soil drying out. So like as soon as, like I always say, listen to your plants and like look at your plants, observe your plants. If you see the leaves, not like you're touching the leaves and it doesn't feel sort of like tight and like hard, but it's sort of like droopy and it feels really soft, then your sunflower needs to have water, right? If you look at your plant and it of course looks good, then don't bother to water it, because if you overwater, then that can create root rot and issues like that that you don't want to have forming in the soil itself. So you want to make sure have a nice evenly moist soil without putting too much of water, having it be waterlogged, and then the plant can't grow properly because there isn't enough air circulating, because there's just so much of moisture in the roots itself, which is one of the reasons why you have something like root rot taking place in your soil. Now, when it comes to sunlight, of course, it's right there in the name. It's a sunflower, so you want to give your sunflowers as much sun as possible. Now, I have seen, especially the branching sunflower, I've seen it grow with 6, even 5 hours of sunlight, but that's not optimal. There is what can work, and then there is what is optimal or the best, and then there is what is just not enough. All right, so I would say 5-6 hours is sort of like, that's like the base of what you want to do with your sunflowers. Aim to give it 7, 8, 9 hours based on wherever you're living. Of course, if you are living in somewhere like an apartment, then put it like on a windowsill or where you have some sunlight coming in, if you have that sort of infrastructure, to make sure that you're having enough sun. But just know that it isn't the end of the world if you can't guarantee to give it 7, 8 amount of hours with the sunlight. Give it as much as you can give it, and let's see what happens with your sunflower. Okay, so let's get planting. I'm going to be using one of these 1-gallon buckets for my sunflowers, because like you can see here, I have some more sunflowers that I already planted into these 1-gallon buckets. It's crazy how little bit of nutrients these sunflowers actually take up, because I mean, it's such like if you look at the proportion with the example I was trying to give in the beginning, these sunflowers, they're so huge compared to how much soil they actually have here and how much root structure. Like it blows my mind how big these sunflowers end up getting with just such a little bit of soil. Even these seedlings, they're so, it's not even filled all the way to the top, but you can see how much plant you have just with just this little bit of soil. It's just incredible, right? Now this is what sunflower seeds look like. So if you want and you get sunflower seeds, you just want to soak them maybe for 24 hours before planting them, because sunflower seeds are a favorite snack of many, many birds, and even ants will steal your sunflower seeds. So if you're planting them, especially in ground, soak it before. That way that when you put it into the ground, it's just not going to take as much time to germinate, and then you'll have a plant, and then you won't have to worry about the seeds getting destroyed by some foraging animal that you may have in your backyard. And even from containers, those ants can come in, and they can, even birds will come in, and they'll even dig in the soil to get the sunflower seeds, because it's such a delicious treat that we eat as humans, and of course the animals love to have it. Now this sort of seedling, what I would do is I would just fill the container, not all the way to the top, just fill it about 3/4 ways, dig my hole, and I'll put a little bit of my worm castings, because it's it's going to help the sunflower grow. Sunflowers, they appreciate a high amount of nitrogen, because it's mainly nitrogen that they need to do most of the growth. And just cover it in, backfill it, make sure it's nice and sturdy, especially if the seedling is this big. Normally I wouldn't plant sunflowers this big, but these two here, I just didn't get around to planting them, so they ended up getting a bit too big to handle. Sometimes you get busy in just everyday life, and you neglect the garden a little bit, but it's completely fine. It's going to grow, and it's going to produce a nice sunflower head, fingers crossed for me, and we will see what ends up happening with this. I'm just going to keep on, as I said, keeping the soil nice and moist. That's why it always helps to have soil that is rich in organic matter. We call manure the wood compost that is in the soil here. It's going to help with that, to retain the moisture. And I'm just going to listen to the plant, and When it looks like it needs to get watered, I'll water it. If it looks fine, then I won't water it. Typically, if there isn't rain, I'll be watering these sunflowers maybe once every 2 to 3 days. If there is rain, I'll just keep on checking it and I wouldn't water it if I know that the soil looks fine, and it's good to just put your finger down into the soil and see if it is feeling dry. And if it's not feeling dry, then don't bother to water your plant, because you don't want it to be waterlogged and cause something like root rot or even fungus that you could have forming in the roots, because there's just so much of moisture and not enough air circulating in the soil to keep the soil aerobic as opposed to anaerobic. And that's it. Super simple, super easy plant to grow in your garden that again will just uplift the entire place and just keep you, really, really happy to have something like sunflowers in your garden. Now, remember that you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook to see the progress of these sunflowers and to see other things coming out of the Trini Gardener's garden. Remember that we're so happy when you tag us in your pictures and videos on any of those platforms, so that it can keep on motivating us and helping us to see you all in your gardens, just doing your thing, just spending time with family, connecting with everyone, connecting with nature, and also just such a nice way to relax after all of your stress from work and whatever else is going on in your life. Remember that if you know someone who'd be interested in growing more healthy, organic, affordable food right at home in their gardens, in containers or in raised beds, feel free to share the channel, to share this video with them, to help them and encourage them to provide for themselves and their family, be more self-sustainable, do it in a way that is organic, environmentally friendly, and of course, affordable. Remember, as always, this has been Dylan from the Trini Gardener channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. Take care.